After its announcement in 2017 under the project name ReFantazio, I was looking closely at what further developments this project has for us, and it's coming from the same team who dropped the masterpieces Persona 3, 4, and 5, and it just got me on board right in. Now it's known as Metaphor ReFantazio, and with its release being right around the corner, I was provided with an early review copy of this highly anticipated RPG. Keep in mind this review does not cover anything that goes beyond September 7th based on the game's calendar. But you know what's in our calendar? It is Metaphor ReFantazio's Reviews Day. The game's story takes place in a unique fantasy breathtaking world that can only be found and experienced in this game. The world and setting are just so unique to the point I was always impressed by how creative everything is, from the architectures, characters, and monster design. It really gave me the same feelings when I watched my first Ghibli Studio movie, vibes that you can only get from this experience, and this experience alone. The story picks up after the king of the United Kingdom of Aeronia got assassinated. Then all of a sudden, some mysterious magic only known to the king with a really huge face showed up in the sky calling itself a king, and it basically announced a tournament for whoever wins it will be the next to sit on the throne of this kingdom. While going through this world, the game follows its themes properly, with whatever you do for your people as a candidate affects your reputation among them. It makes every side activity and every aid you give to the people even all more satisfying and fulfilling. The politics acts as the backdrop of it all, because each character has their own motive and story that you can resonate with differently. They all come from different backgrounds and races, which made the storytelling intriguing and really unique to many other RPGs, because you really get to see each of their unique struggles and how the world treats them differently, making me care for every single one of the main cast. The protagonist still acts as a Shin Megami protag, just louder this time around. You get to choose the dialogue options for him to speak it, and he would just pronounce it. But when it comes to the cutscenes, it is always the other characters doing the heavy lifting. So if you're like me and you were expecting a different kind of a protagonist than usual, I think you will be left disappointed, especially after their announcement of the protagonist not being a silent protagonist. But overall, I still like this blue-haired Aigis. The gameplay flows differently from anything Atlas have provided to us. From the first glimpse, you would think it's basically Persona and Holidays, but the main distinguishable factor is not the lack of a school, it is actually how you get to explore and travel the world with way less things to tie you in, besides the calendar, so you will still have to spend your time wisely without getting some of the tasks expired. Time management is key here. But what my favorite aspect is in this flow is the dungeon exploration, which you can reach to by using your Gauntlet Runner. Traveling with Gauntlet Runner will require you from a day to a few to reach your destination. You spend this time to get to know your friends better and increase your virtues along the way. The dungeons are full of secrets, and each is tied to a side task given to you by the townspeople, making it more than just a simple dungeon dive. This gameplay flow is absolutely beautiful, and it just comes all together nicely, especially when the turn-based combat is one of the best. It is difficult to make something innovative in the long-running turn-based genre, but Atlas managed to make something so special here, all thanks to the archetypes. They are best compared to that of the job system in Final Fantasy games, but more involved with how you upgrade it by strengthening your bonds with your friends and more. Each archetype just gave me such a rush of adrenaline and curiosity to unlock to explore its abilities. Also, the combat itself feels always so active, with how before engaging in its turn-based encounters, you can deal damage in real time to stun the enemies, then take the advantage for when you get to start the fight, or if they are weak, you will just slash your way through them. And I cannot stress enough about how much I love the difficulty in this game. It just asks you to use everything you have to win, and it has a bit of survival elements to it, with how the status elements just don't disappear after the fights, making you always careful with your items. It can be a bit overwhelming at times, especially if you are not familiar with the dungeon or the status elements it will have for you, but it is worth it to stack up with the status elements cures whenever I get to visit the shops. Now I wanted to dedicate this part on its own because I have few things to say regarding the game's technical aspects. Metaphor's art style is superb, like I mentioned before, and it stands out from every other game that fall into the same category. Even when it's not going for that AAA graphical fidelity, it still look amazing sometimes. But unfortunately, there are areas that got completely ruined by the lack of anti-aliasing and improper lighting work, making them a sore to look at sometimes, especially when there is too much going on the screen. The image tends to get a bit shaky and it gets too much after playing for long hours, and the game doesn't have any graphical settings on consoles, so it was disappointing in that regard. It also has some FPS drops in busy areas and at times even closed areas with nothing much going on. There will be a day one patch and I really hope it addresses some of these issues. I also had some occasional crashes that led to some frustration, but it is nothing too frequent. In conclusion, Metaphor ReFantazio is a fresh take on a familiar formula that exceeded all of my expectations by providing the most exciting turn-based combat this generation, lovable cast, and a very unique world. And with all confidence, I can say this is one of the best RPG games this generation, even with the disappointment I have towards the protagonist and the game's technical aspects, but all is forgiven with how fantastic everything else is. Thanks so much for watching, and if you enjoyed watching this review and found it informative, please hit the subscribe button. It will help me a lot.